Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vasel and Sam Healey.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel.
Sam Healey.
Yeah, season love. Many years ago, 10 years ago, Twilight Imperium 3 came out.
Correct.
And for the last 9 years, I've been hoping that Fantasy Flight was going to release a Star Wars version of Twilight Imperium. Whenever I said such things, people said, well, how's that possible? Because, it's really only Rebels versus Imperium.
Wrong.
Well, okay, I know, but basically it's not a six-way battle.
It could be.
Yeah.
There's more than enough races in the Star Wars universe to have a Twilight Imperium 4.
Either way, I gave up on it. Sam hasn't.
I'm not.
But I always hoped that they would put out a galaxy-wide game about Star Wars. As far as I can tell, there does not exist such a thing unless it's one of those old West End type games that we never played.
Right.
All right. There's all sorts of Star Wars games out there, but they're always none of them are galactic-wide.
Right.
Well, this one promises to be so.
Here you go.
Let's take a look at it, and then we'll tell you what we think. Now, there are a lot of pieces in the game. This is the basic setup that the rulebook tells you to use for your first game. You can use it for as many games as you want, but it's very similar to the way the setup is. The Imperial's going to get a certain number of units that they have out, and you can see here that they have heavy ground units, AT-ATs, they have the medium ground units, the AT-STs, and then they have stormtroopers, who are the regular ground units. They also have TIE fighters, they're light air units, the assault shuttles, and then they have Star Destroyers, and even the massive Super Star Destroyer. They also have a Death Star, and the game even comes with a model of a Death Star that's under construction. The good guys, the Rebels, have, of course, the X-Wings, and you can also see here on the board, we'll take a look closer at this space right here, you can see the Y-Wings, and the transport, and here's a Corellian Corvette, and on the planet you can see regular troops and speeder troops. The Rebels also have the possibility to put guns on a planet, or shield defenses, and the gigantic Mon Calamari cruisers. So there's lots of different units for each of the sides, and players are going to be setting these up. But where the game really comes in importance is over here at this track. This is the whole point of the game. Each turn of the game, this counter is going to move, counting the turns. There is a deck of objective cards that the Rebel player has. The Rebel player, if they ever do one of these objectives, so for example here, regional support. If all the populous systems in one region have Rebel loyalty, they can play this card, and that will give them 1 point here. And if this ever reaches the turn marker, the Rebels win. You'll notice there's one spot on the board where the Rebels have troops. This is the Rebel base. Now, where is this Rebel base on the board? You don't see that. It could be any of these planets. At the beginning of the game, the Rebels are going to take this deck here of probe droid cards, and they're going to pick one of these spots to be their Rebel base. It just has to be one of the spots on the board that the Imperials aren't already in control, and it can never be Coruscant because that's always the Imperial area. So they pick that. And then the rest of the cards are going to be shuffled and are going to be placed over here next to the board. And each turn of the game, and the Imperial's going to be sending out probe droids and drawing 2 of these, and that eliminates those 2 planets, obviously. And there's other ways that they can find out and narrow down where the Rebel base is. If they find the Rebel base and they get troops there, and you also, if they land on a planet, the Rebel has to tell them if the base is there, then suddenly this stuff is on that planet and they have to fight it. And if they destroy the Rebel base, basically if they have units in a Rebel base area and the Rebel player has nothing there, the Imperials win. So for the Imperials win, they have to destroy the Rebel base, and for the Rebels to win, they have to make these 2 counters meet. Each player has a player board in front of them, and on this player board, which by the way is 2-sided, if you're playing with more than 2 players, 4 players, that tells you basically who gets what on each of the different 2 players are on a team, and so it will show you what each of the teammates have. But you have a leader pool here, and each player starts with leaders. For example, Princess Leia is one of the starting leaders over here, a couple generals. In the dark side, you have the Emperor and Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader. But as the game goes by, you're going to have the opportunity to get more leaders from Chewbacca and Han Solo and Boba Fett and Lando Calrissian. Lots of different leaders that you're going to be able to get and add to your leader pool. You also have different stats for the different units. The black stat, the first one, shows how many black dice they roll. The second one shows how many red dice they roll in combat. The next one shows what kind of damage they take. They only take damage from red dice, and they have 2 hit points. And then the small number here shows how many units they carry when they go through space. These symbols also show which planets produce them, and then some of them have special abilities like the shield generator and the ion cannon. The game revolves around mission cards. Each player has 4 starting mission cards, and you'll be drawing other cards as the game goes by. And on your turn, at the beginning of each round, the Rebel player will go first, and then the Imperial player, you can take mission cards and place them face down in front of you with a leader on top of them. So let's say, for example, I want to play this Rule by Fear card. This Rule by Fear card says that I need 1 diplomacy on this card. So the Emperor here has 3 diplomacy, so I can play the Emperor on this card. And you can play as many of these mission cards as you want, but you also might want to keep some of the leaders in your leader pool. Now the reason you want to do that is on your turn, after you players have put out these missions, each player can use a leader to either activate a mission. So I might say, all right, I'm going to activate this mission. You do what it says. Usually it puts you in one of the systems. Or I can take a leader from the leader pool and move troops. Now moving troops is pretty easy. You put it, things can move to an adjacent system. You put the leader in the system that you wish to move to, and then units can move to that system. Some units like the Death Star and the Star Destroyers can carry other units. You can drop things off on planets. This is a rebel system here, but when Imperial troops land on it, subjugate it, which is not as good as in controlling the system. And you don't automatically control systems when you drop troops off on them, but you can move in there, and if there had been other troops, there would, from the Allies, for example, there would be a fight. Now, once a leader is in a system, the units in that system are kind of locked, and they can't move again. So you have to be careful how you put your leaders out. When you put your leader out for a mission, you put him out somewhere, and he will accomplish that mission depending on what the card says. If the card says, for example, resolve, you simply do whatever the card says, automatically. If it says attempt, then that means you're going to try to do it, but your opponent, if they've left a leader in their pool, can try to have that leader stop you by sending that leader out. And depending on what the attempt is, let's say it's in diplomacy, you're each going to roll dice. So here the Emperor rolls 3 dice, and Leia would roll 2 dice. You both roll dice, and you're trying to get... The colors don't matter. They have the same symbols on each one. You're trying to get successes. These are successes. And whoever gets more successes wins, and the X's are worth 2 successes. And the most successes wins. If it's a tie, then the person who's trying to block the mission succeeds in blocking it. So players are going to do these different missions, and they can do all sorts of things. You can capture an opponent's leader. You can, many of the missions involve placing control tokens on the board. Some of the Imperial missions allow them to basically draw from this construction deck, which gives them the laser for their Death Star or the Super Star Destroyers, or to start building another Death Star on the board. The Rebel ones can drop in saboteur markers, which will slow down Imperial production or just basically take over different systems. The cards might let you move. There's all sorts of things that you can do. You might, if you capture an enemy prisoner as the Imperials, you may have a chance to force that prisoner to give you information about where the enemy base is. When you drop units in on an enemy planet where there's going to be a battle. Each player, if they have a leader in their leader pool, can drop that leader in, and that leader is going to basically give them cards that they'll draw from these piles here. So here he's going to draw 2 space tactics cards and 1 land tactic card. And there are different cards, and these cards are cards that you can play during combat. Combat itself is pretty simple. First the spaceships fire, and you'll fire separately, but it's pretty much simultaneous. You will fire at each other, then the land units will fire at each other, then both sides can retreat if they want, and you keep firing until someone has retreated or until you kill the other side. When you fire, you're going to be rolling dice, possibly of different colors, possibly of one color. But when you hit, this hit here, for example, will only hit something that has a black hit point. So if I'm shooting at the rebels in space and I roll a black hit, I hit either a Y-wing or an X-wing, but I can't hit the Calamari cruiser because that has a red hit point. So I would need the red hits for that. However, each die has a wild side to it. When you roll this, you can hit a red ship or a black ship with this. You also can roll this card here, which is this symbol there, which is needed to play some of the tactic cards, or can let you draw more tactic cards in battle. So for example, this brilliant strategy card here allows you to draw 2 tactic cards from either deck or 1 from each. Here I can re-roll 2 of my dice. This is free to play. If I have it in my hand, I can block damage, deal 1 damage up to 2 different ground units. If they have more than 1 damage, you just put hits on them. Hits heal after battle, but in a battle you get enough hits on a ship and you can blow that ship up. And sometimes winning a battle will help out the rebels, but it's usually going to help someone out because you're destroying enemy ships. As the turn marker moves, every even turn there's going to be a building phase, and the first 4 turns players are going to have the opportunity to bring out more characters. They'll be drawing from a deck, and maybe they'll bring out Chewbacca or Wedge Antilles, or Sunter Fell, or Admiral Piet. And there's just different folks there that they'll bring out. When you are building things, each planet that you control is going to give you specific reinforcements based on your chart. So this, for example, if the Imperial's controlling it, he's going to get a TIE Fighter and a Stormtrooper. And you'll notice there's a little 1 here, and so he'll place those over here on this track in the 1 slot. Sometimes you might build a Star Destroyer that's placed in a 3 slot, or this is placed in a 2 slot. After players are done placing these, they then move everything forward like this, and anything that was in slot 1 they can put out on the board, just 2 units per spot. Now that's a very general overview of the game. I didn't go through every rule, but the game is not that complex. It's knowing what cards to use. As you have these different mission cards, the Imperials are trying to focus and find where is that planet. They're going to be drawing more and more probe cards, while the Rebels are trying to go through this deck, because once they get this deck is in order here, the 1s are shuffled on top of the 2s and 3s. Some of these can get them multiple points. This one can get them 2 points if they do whatever it says on each of these cards. And then the Imperial player is trying to stop them. So there's some give and take. Eventually, one side is the winner. Star Wars kind of brings a double-edged sword with it. In one, because we're naturally inclined to like a game with Star Wars.
Correct.
On the other hand, the game better be good.
Yep.
Or it's really going to get smacked down.
Correct.
So, components. Stop hugging the box. Do you like the components or not?
Components are superb.
Yeah.
The only detractor, and I'm actually not worried that much about it because the artwork on the cardboard stanchions is really good, and they're not just production stills or anything like that. They're actually really well done artwork, thematic artwork.
Great artwork.
And so the cardboard stanchions I'm actually not too worried about. Now I like games like Dead of Winter that has, a whole ton.
I don't know. I actually think these are better than miniatures, because if these were miniatures, you'd have to have the symbols on another card and all that.
Well, not necessarily another card. You could have them on the base. It would take some time, but could do it. All I'm saying is that's a minor little scratch on the component side of this. Everything else is amazingly well done.
Specifically, the Death Star, especially the unfinished Death Star.
Yeah.
Oh man, it just looks really great. The Super Star Destroyers, the Star Destroyers, the cannons. Although Sam
do
pointed out,
not step on that bad boy. That's gonna hurt.
The artwork. It's a good game, and I thought that the graphic design, something that Fantasy Flight sometimes messes up a little bit, doesn't make it look as clean. Mm-hmm. This one is super clean.
Super duper clean. That is very cool.
I like how on these cards, where it shows the different planets, the scanning cards. It says Yavin, the probe cards, and then it shows you where it is on the board. really useful.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is a super Star Wars nerd and knows. I mean, I know most of these planets. I don't know where they are.
Right, exactly. I don't. Man, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I could not tell you. I have not studied that little map of the Star Wars galaxy, and no.
Well, we cannot take anything else you say for the rest of this review seriously now.
True.
Okay, now, does the game have a Star Wars theme? Is it a pasted on
feel?
theme, or does it feel like the Star Wars movies, and if so, which ones?
Well, I mean, I truly believe that the game's mechanisms work incredibly well with a Star Wars theme. Multiple times throughout the game, we were saying, wow, that's really thematic. Or, wow, that really works within this whole galaxy. Or, wow, I remember when that actually happened in the movie. That type of stuff.
Some slight changes.
You could take... well, yeah, the Death Star didn't get blown up, but that's okay. You could take almost any theme and slap it on there, but it would not be as good.
I'll be stronger than that and say this game is themed perfectly, in my opinion.
There you go.
I'm always concerned about these things, but this game, you can tell that the people who made it know the Star Wars movies back and forth. I mean, you have Luke can go train with Yoda and become a Jedi in the middle of the thing. You have, of course, the Death Star blowing up planets, and you have capturing people and putting them in carbonite. You have many of the major characters. Now, a lot of these small little details, like maybe the cantina or the Rancor, those things aren't in this.
Right.
But the overall and the big events of the movie are definitely there.
It's because of the galactic nature of the thing.
Right. And so, for me, my biggest comparison for this game is War of the Ring. With War of the Ring, I always said that's Lord of the Rings in a box.
Right.
This is Star Wars in a box. Sure, it's not very lightsabery.
The entire saga.
Right. It's more of the overarching thing. There's not the lightsaber duels. There's not X-Wing combat.
Right.
But that's okay because we already have lots of games that do that stuff.
Exactly.
This is what I really have always wanted, to have this big overarching, galactic war, and it's cinematic the whole time. I'm sitting there going, okay, and I'm using a general to sneak in troops on one of the planets. Oh, we landed there. Oh, there's no verbal base.
Yeah.
We're blew up the planet. And I made his prisoner watch as I blew up the planet, and then Han Solo comes in and stops Boba Fett from capturing Luke, and it's really neat that way. The battles.
The combat system is actually pretty neat. It's a little clunky because each combat takes a while because you roll and roll. I roll, you roll, I roll, you roll.
And play cards.
And do this. So there's a lot of stuff.
It's a very fantasy flight combat
during
system.
Combat. It's not a bad system. It's just a little bit, grindy of the gears, kind of, where the game's flowing really, really well until the combat happens. And then we have to do the combat. Okay, now we can get back to the game.
Now, combat can be exciting, though, so I'm not too upset by that.
So, the TI3 is the same way, where the game flows. Okay, huge battle, everything stops. Get out your popcorn, watch the battle happen, and then you can get back to the game. So, I'm not big on that. It doesn't bother me. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. But I just wanted to let you know that it is there, because that might be a big detractor for you, where everything kind of screeches to a halt during combat. But I don't mind that at all. I think it's pretty cool.
Well, the benefit this game has over a multiplayer game is that when things do screech for a halt in combat, you're involved.
You're both involved, correct.
Unlike, like a bigger war game where there's combat, you two are fighting, I might as well go take a break.
Exactly.
My favorite part of this game, though, by far, is this mission setup. I love the idea that you have a hand of mission cards and you'll pick these guys to go out on missions or keep them back to use as tactical. This is certainly a mechanism that is an evolution of the one in Twilight Imperium.
Yes.
Okay? But it works so well in this game, and I'll sit there and go, he put Luke on that card. What's Luke going to do? And I'm holding Vader back in reserve because I'm going to go take Luke out wherever he goes. I really enjoyed that system. The cards are interesting. They brought, again, the movie to life. You always felt like, he's doing this, but now I can do this.
Yeah.
And you have these cool plans that are foiled. That was interesting to me a lot.
Another thing that I liked about the missions was that you actually have some missions that you send people on, and if it's successful, it draws the other player's attention away from a different mission that you really wanted to do. So there's almost a two-tier there where you want to get this mission done, because if you do, he can't touch you on this mission. And I really enjoyed that because it just had that feeling of espionage that was there. I'm doing this, and it's a thing that we need to get done, but this is actually what we really wanted to accomplish.
And this is on top of an entire cat and mouse situation.
Exactly.
Because the Imperial player is where is that Rebel base. Now, the Rebel player can switch base. It's not that easy, but it's possible to jump around. But it would help if he can hide the whole time. Because basically you're assured of winning. If you can keep the Imperial player from ever finding your base, because you just sneak out the time. That's interesting to me, because I'm like, where is that Rebel base? And there's a lot of places, and the way the probe deck works, again, cinematic with the movies, but also a good game mechanism.
Yes.
I like a lot. I mean, the building mechanism is good. The missions is good. There's just a lot of cool things that involved in the game. Now, I don't wish to just be like, oh, I love this game.
Yeah, right.
Because it really is super fun, and I really like it, and I think it's a great two-player, epic Star Wars game. I mean, you can play with more players, but you're essentially sharing a side. Whatever. The game has rules. You do this, you do that, but you're just sharing a side. The game does have one fault, or maybe it's not a fault if it's you, and that's that it's long. It's going to be long. Sam said the battles can drag down, but the game is epic. This is not a kind of game where I'm like, hey, we got an hour to blow, let's play it. I think that even if we had played it 30 times and we knew what we were doing, I still think the game would take at least 2.5 to 3 hours, because the more you know it, the more you're going to sit there and go, what's the other guy going to do?
Right.
You're not making random choices. Your choices are very strategic and tactical choices. You are not just, there's some randomness in the dice, but there's a lot of just straight up out-thinking the other person.
Exactly.
And so that length is going to be an issue for some people. Not everyone has time to play a 2 hours is kind of short. The box says 3 to 4, and I think that's legit. Two-player game that's that long. That might chase some people away, but when you do it, you will lead the game remembering. We played a game before we did this video, and I will remember what happened. I can tell you, I blew up Kashyyyk. I made Chewbacca watch why that happened. Then Han Solo came in and freed Chewbacca.
Exactly.
Then Boba Fett tried to capture Luke, and
Han Solo
stopped it. Then I captured some no-name guy and let him run, and I found out the Rebel base was nowhere near where I thought it was. General Veers took a whole expedition, and we landed on Hoth, and there was nothing there. There was a huge space battle where they almost blew up the Super Star Destroyer. The Rebels snuck in and sabotaged the yards at Coruscant. I remember these things, and I love that. So for me, this gets 2 Super Star Destroyers up. I think it's great. The caveat, of course, being you need to have time to play it. But that's Star Wars Rebellion for me.
Well, here's my rating.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Wait, where's the other one?
It's over there. It's not that important. Oh, you're giving it 3?
Giving it, we're just going to round this one up to 3.
All right.
3 Death Stars up. This was an amazing experience, and it's going to be hard to get it back to the table, but I can't wait for it to happen because I really enjoy myself that much. So,
yeah,
this was a grand slam from Fantasy Flight. They are doing the Star Wars IP much justice with
I know.
they're putting out.
Because I'm thinking the only thing that they haven't done at this point is like lightsaber battles. But, well, even that. I mean, we got Imperial Assault for the ground. Mm-hmm. We got X-Wing and Armada. And now we got Rebellion for the... Guys, if you're complaining about a lack of Star Wars games, which I don't think anyone is.
Not anymore.
But 5 years ago.
Yep.
All right. Good job.
Very well done, Fantasy Flight.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.